What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about Hogwarts Legacy 2, kind of putting together those job postings of the MMO and what I want to see of the second game. Now, I know there's a lot of videos and a lot of channels that do, that kind of thing, but I really want to lean into the MMO side of things and say, all right, in a perfect world where there's harmony, which oftentimes there isn't, what would I like to see if they are trying to beef up from, the hiring process of people that kind of have these MMO backgrounds? How can you seamlessly put that, or what might they be looking for to be added into a Hogwarts Legacy 2? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm sure there'll be plenty of time, over the next 2 to 4 years to discuss the specifics of Hogwarts Legacy 2 once we learn more, or leaks or rumors, or all that kind of stuff. Okay, so what I'm kind of getting at is I think too, and this is really my primary focus, I think to a lot of the stuff that was cut content from Hogwarts Legacy, and this isn't necessarily rumors or leaks or anything. These are like data mine type things. These are things that people found in files and a lot of really interesting information. I mean, there's plenty of YouTube videos that go over it. Now, if you look at like what was cut, there's kind of a common theme there, right? And it tends to be more, I don't know if I would call it life sim, like a Sims and things like that kind of thing, but more like, okay, if you do something, there's consequences, right? A policing type system, more reliance on house points and things like that, right? Like that's, if you watch those videos, those are a lot of the things that were cut. And those were actually things that we did live streams going into Hogwarts Legacy, 1, talking about things where it's like, how strict does the scheduling get? Like, do you have to go to classes on time, or are there going to be kind of guards at night, right? Like maybe students walking the hallways that if they catch you, you're sent back to your common room, and you lose house points or whatever. Those were things we discussed leading in. That's kind of the stuff that was cut. Now, not exactly that one, but there are some similar things there, right? So where I'm going with this, when I think of, is the worry is always when you're hiring people from MMO. I think a lot of people feared, it's why we made all those videos. Can you please, for the love of God, let them do what they're good at? They were just assembled to make an open world, kind of RPG. And while it was RPG light, they definitely, that was the push. And so they did a pretty okay job as their first go. Let them double down. And that's where I'm going with it, right? And I truly do think in a perfectly like optimist type world, that is what they're doing. In a pessimistic world, I think that those MMO hires, I think they would maybe try to change literally what Hogwarts Legacy is, or say, hey, I mean, we can eventually do a Hogwarts Legacy 2. Let's make like an MMO. Let's literally do a DC Universe Online, or whatever you want to call it, and let's do Harry Potter, and let's completely change it up. A Harry Potter MMO would work. It would be, I think, very successful. I guess if done right, it could also last long term. I think no matter what, it would do really well at launch. Okay, like literally, they can make the worst product, available, and it would still do well at launch, but it would completely fall apart after that. It would work. But in a perfect world, I think you can use some of those elements and put it into Hogwarts Legacy 2. So that's the way I'm trying to think of that, at least right now, until we get more information as to why they want people with an MMO background that they're hiring. Until we learn more about that, I'm going to try to assume the best, at least for right now, and assume that they're looking for people with that kind of mindset. So what is that mindset? Well, that's a mindset, I think, of like collaboration, so working with other people. I do think multiplayer could be a very, very big part of a Hogwarts Legacy 2. Whether you can play, say, a Quidditch or a Wizard's Chess or whatever with it, or you have those dueling things, and things, again, we've talked about. Ghost of Tsushima, I think, is actually a really good example. I think Ghost of Tsushima will always be a good example for pretty much any single-player game that makes sense, even after it came out, right? Because Ghost of Tsushima comes out, it does so well. It's such a great game. And then all of a sudden, they just drop for free this incredible multiplayer mode. And you think to yourself, oh, yeah, the game could work with other people. Now, there was, allies and stuff in Ghost of Tsushima, so that was kind of in your mind. But the game works so well playing with other people. Doesn't mean make Ghost of Tsushima 2 fully online. It just means you can have an online mode. I think Hogwarts Legacy, when people saw that, right, people were talking about it. Well, you drop the base game. It's single player. Could you add those elements? I think that's another one. A Hogwarts Legacy 2 very, very likely could have some sort of multiplayer thing tied directly into it right away. But I also think, again, in terms of MMO, I think of those more like life sim type things. I think the whole, hey, maybe it's a little bit more strict with a schedule type thing. Maybe they go a little bit more into the RPG system and they say, okay, you're going to put points now to certain things. You're maybe not going to learn every single spell that the game get. Unlike this one, right? You have all your spells, and that's not a bad thing. You have all your spells, and you're just kind of deciding which ones to use at any given time, and making the wheel and all that stuff. For the next game, maybe it's not. Maybe you put certain points into this or that, and when you get so many points into something, you unlock something. You unlock a spell that you won't get if you don't put those points there. That's something that I do think it actually would be cool. I think is more MMO/RPG like. And I also think it's more in line with what we kind of expected in the first place from the first game. Doesn't mean it's necessarily better. It just means I think they should maybe give it a try. And when you have those people with the MMO experience, that's kind of what I would expect. Another thing that comes to mind when I think of MMOs, and probably comes to a lot of people's minds, is like raiding, right? Or just raids in general. So that would kind of be pretty cool for Hogwarts. And that goes into, I think, the seamless kind of multiplayer thing, right? Where you'll be playing the game single player. You can play the game single player. You can do a multiplayer thing. Maybe there's a dungeon, a literal dungeon, like a literal dark dungeon. And you can go alone. You can maybe go with your AI friends that you have in the world, or you can go, with online people. I do think online connecting with other people would be a big part of why they're bringing those people in. And then the systems of, whether, again, they're leaning more into house points or leaning more into the RPG and skill point type things. That's what I think you mainly get by doing it. Is there other things they would need to do? Yeah. I mean, you got to bulk up the story still. I mean, that was a big point that I think I made. Other people probably made. Like, the story was solid. The side characters, depending on which one you're talking about, was actually pretty darn good, but their link and how important they are in the game was lacking. So there's other things they can do, but if you're just talking about that MMO component, that's what I think you're getting. I think you're getting a little bit more like seamless multiplayer and a little bit more of those MMO RPG systems put into, which again is what we were expecting in the first place, and some of which was cut. And that's why I don't really hold a lot of that over. Like, I do try to focus more on the story and the characters and stuff like that, because a lot of the systems of getting caught, and if you use like Avada Kedavra, like, you basically have like a wanted level, right? And people are going to come after you. Like, that was in the game, or it was at least prototyped, or they want in the game, whatever it might be, and then they took it out. So at least they tried. It was probably a time constraint thing. I don't fault them too, because at least there's proof, right, that like that's something that was in their head, and that's good. I think we're in the same wavelength, us fans, as along with them. We kind of do want the same thing. It just depends on how much they can actually put in the game. So let me know what you guys think about this discussion. Again, I'm sure we will have many, many more as time goes on. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.